I installed 3 plug-and-play upgrades that will allow me to double the power of my M2's S58 engine. Not only do they allow the car to make massive power reliably, but they also eliminate many of the shortcomings you get out of the OEM components. Oh and yeah, they make the car look much better as well.
Guys, we are going big today. What we have here on the table are 3 massive coolant upgrades for my G87 M2. All 3 of these products are from a company called CSF, which a lot of you guys should be very familiar with. These are all plug and play, drop-in upgrades, and I'm a huge fan. I had a very similar setup on my A90 Supra, and I absolutely fell in love with it. First up is the heat exchanger, all metal design, hand polished. This heat exchanger is absolutely massive. Just wait till I remove the OEM heat exchanger so you guys can see a side-by-side comparison. You would think that you wouldn't be able to install this onto the car without modifying something. Next up is the oil cooler for the S58, which is a new release from CSF. Just like the heat exchanger, super beefy, all metal construction, and I think my favorite part about it is that it's black. Unlike the OEM one, which kind of sticks out, especially with the opening in front of the M2. So it's definitely gonna blend in better. It's gonna be more of a ninja look. And last but not least, we have the charge cooler intake manifold. This right here is an absolute piece of jewelry, and honestly guys, it makes me happy just talking about it. I'm legit like sitting behind the camera as I'm filming an intake manifold with like this cheese on my face because I'm just so excited that I'm finally gonna get to install it today. CNC billet construction, super versatile. You can run port injection, nitrous, meth.
This is not meth.
This right here is the Michael Jordan of intake manifolds. Just saying. Also have the fuel roll matched in Zanford blue to run port injection. And lastly, we have this heat rejection spacer that installs in between the intake manifold and the side of the S58 engine. It's made from Kylex, pretty much a polymer material, and it makes all the difference in the world. It can reduce the temperatures on the intake manifold by 15%, which makes a lot of sense because instead of having an intake manifold installed to the side of the motor where it would be metal on metal contact and heat transfer is more likely to happen, you have this sitting in between, which will help disperse that heat, which will keep everything cooler on the intake manifold side. A huge, massive thanks to the guys at CSF, Robbie and Alan. I had a request to match the intake manifold with the paint color of my M2 Zanford blue, and they made it happen, and now it's gonna look absolutely amazing in the engine bay. I'll have everything linked down in the video's description to make it easy for you guys. And if you have any questions, feel free to email us. We sell a ton of CSF stuff and we will be able to help you guys out with any questions or any concerns. Cut. So we'll start with all the prep work first since we're doing all 3 upgrades at once. We'll start with the engine bay, beauty cover, strut tower braces, intake, DME bracket, core support, all the stuff that's on top of the heat exchanger. We'll then lift the car, remove the wheels, take off all the under panel stuff so we can have access to all the hoses so we can drain the coolant. And yo, you. And I guess we'll go from there. This is literally all the bullshit that Jacob's gonna compress into like 20 seconds. I have some safety glasses for this.
No one wears that.
That's different. I know, right? You just gotta suffer through it. It's a car guy thing. Guys, be super careful with this coolant line right here. Like super careful. I feel like it's the stupidest design. It gets in the way, and it's a fairly hard line here, and I feel like you can just crack it and snap it without even trying. Time for the fun part. Drain and cool it. So we'll start off with the auxiliary radiator on this side. We'll do the same for the other side, and then we'll remove the hoses from the heat exchanger. Also, it's probably a good idea to remove the cap from both expansion tanks for coolant to make it easier to drain, which by the way, I haven't done.
I'm scared.
I know, I should have like one of the drains that like lift up here, so I don't have this issue, but.
Okay.
Wow, I didn't release the cap from the top. There it is.
I don't think the bucket's big enough.
Hey, perfect game. All right, so now we're moving on to the upper hose for the heat exchanger. Now I just put the flathead right here, turn it just a little bit. Now it's nice and loose. More coolant is draining, but not from the top part, it's draining from the bottom hose. So you're not making a mess here in the engine bay. Okay, now to release the heat exchanger. So right behind where the kidney grill cutouts are, back there, if you look closely, there's a square with a small tab right there. You'll push on that and then pull up on the heat exchanger at the same time. Here's a quick side-by-side comparison. You got the CSF heat exchanger here and obviously the OEM one, which is much slimmer.
This heat exchanger has several benefits to the OEM variant. One of the biggest highlights being reliability. The all-metal design is less prone to failure over time. The OEM version has plastic end tanks that over time can crack due to long heat exposure. If that fails, well, the coolant leaks out and you're left stranded. Not fun. The other main highlight with the CSF heat exchanger is coolant efficiency. It features a 2-row high-performance core which does a better job at cooling the coolant before making its way to the charge cooler. When installing a heat exchanger, be mindful of these pre-installed brackets. Keep them on if you have an automatic transmission, as it's used for the transmission cooler. If you have a manual trans like me, remove them and bolt on the included rock shield directly to the heat exchanger. Also, don't forget to uninstall the bottom OEM rock guard, as it won't be used with the upgrade.
Heat exchanger fully seated, went ahead and connected the upper and lower hose. So we're good to go here. Next thing I'm gonna do is I'll remove this cap here because I've actually timed this job with an oil change. So I'll remove this cap, I'm gonna go ahead and drain oil, and then I'll go ahead and disconnect the lines for the oil cooler underneath the car and then do the job at that point. The reason I timed it this way is because the oil filter is down there underneath this coolant reservoir. Yeah, very nice of you, BMW, very nice. So since I'm gonna be taking off the original charge cooler, it's gonna give me better access to get to the filter and do the oil change.
To uninstall the OEM oil cooler, you have to drill out these rivets that hold the 2 plastic guards that holds the assembly in place. No worries though, because CSF does include hardware to tighten everything back on when installing their oil cooler.
All right, so here's another side-by-side comparison. Here's the OEM one right here, and we got the CSF one, which is much thicker in width. Also, they include, just like the heat exchanger, a rock guard, which is very nice.
Like I mentioned before, by far one of my favorite features of this upgraded oil cooler is the black color. It blends in much nicer than the OEM gray one, and I don't know, it just gives it a cleaner look. But of course, the most important thing are the results. Better cooling. 194% increase in core and tank volume. And the best part is that it installs just like OEM.
There's a rubber piece that we transferred over from the original oil cooler that sits right underneath this plastic bracket. So I went ahead and transferred that on both sides. As long as you have good O-rings, you can reuse those, make sure you just clean them up. And then you do get some included hardware with the oil. Alright, so everything's done with the heat exchanger. Everything's looking good. Man, the rock guard looks way better than the plastic one the car came with. Oil cooler, all set up, bolted on, ready to go. And now we gotta move on to the charge cooler, which is probably gonna take the most amount of labor, and I've never done it before.
The charge cooler. If I had to list out all the positives and advantages, the list would go on forever. CNC billet construction, super versatile with multiple ports for pore injection, meth, nitrous, vacuum references, you name it. The OEM charge cooler is prone to fail at over 27 PSI, but not this bad boy right here. And just like the other 2 upgrades in the video, you don't have to worry about the plastic construction found on the OEM one. The core use is massive, and according to CSF, you get a 30% reduction of intake temperatures compared to the OEM one. It's also beautiful, and you can get it in pretty much any color you want. Shoot us an email with a request, and we got you covered. it was now time to remove the metal under panel to prepare myself for the charge cooler install. It'll help with coolant clean later on and also gives you access to remove the charge pipe from the throttle body. Always a good idea to take a picture or video of all the DME connectors. It just makes things easier later on when it's time to reinstall. Last thing you want is your car not turning on.
DME's out. Now I'm just gonna remove this bracket right here. Before we remove the bracket, which is two 10 mils, there's one 10 mil here, there's a 10 mil up top and backside here close to the firewall. There is a positive cable that's right here. I need to remove that one first. And then this connector right here.
Preparing the new charge cooler is oddly satisfying. Installing block offs to the ports you won't be using, transferring over the throttle body, all the gaskets, T-map sensor, and adding other supplied quick connectors. So we have the OEM one, CSF one side by side so you guys can see. Again, all metal design. This one has a significant amount of plastic that can fill over time, especially at high boost levels. This is the last of the hardware that we haven't used yet. Let's bolt on the manifold to the side of the engine, and then we have the heat rejection spacer as well. So I'll make sure to tighten the drain bolt, add some oil, and I think it's time to install the manifold. Installing the charge cooler is definitely the part that takes the most patience. Remembering when everything goes is the key, and in my case, I didn't want to ruin the beautiful finish. Honestly, guys, you just gotta reverse engineer everything, which he did, because I couldn't remember where any of the freaking vacuum lines or EVAP lines went, to be honest. But the reason I don't know is because he took most of it off.
Bullshit, I didn't take any of the vacuum lines off.
Yeah, you did. We got footage. Hey, Jacob, put the proof right here.
Yeah. The proof is I didn't take it apart.
I left them attached, but you took the rest of them off.
Sure. Is that why I didn't know the routing? Oh, wait. Because I didn't take it off.
You did. Half of it.
So you're telling me I took this top line off? No.
All right, so we got the manifold fully bolted on. Not for the not so fun part, and putting everything back together. God, that looks a million times better than the waffle OEM plastic charge cooler that I had installed. It looks so good. Now I gotta tackle the intakes. For sure, that's the last ugly thing that's underneath the hood. And you have to admit, the opening behind the kidney grills and the bottom center section looks way better with the upgraded heat exchanger and the oil cooler. Obviously, this intake manifold is a significant and pricey mod. There's a reason I'm doing it. I'm chasing big power, and I think you guys might want to subscribe if you haven't already so you guys can follow the entire process. Also, if you enjoyed the video, make sure and hit the like button. It really does help out the channel, and stick around because I'm going to show you guys a teaser of the next M2 video. Definitely picked up some power.